Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to all of you on this Saturday afternoon. Welcome to SCMP Parents Talk, Principals Vision and Action Series presented by HSBC Premier Principals Connect. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Desmond So, and I am delighted to be spending this afternoon with you as your host and moderator. Thank you very much. That's very kind. Thank you. Now, first off, I want to give a very warm welcome to all of you. We're thrilled to see all of you. To those of you who are returning guests, hello again. You are in store for another great afternoon of inspiring insight by our expert panelists. And for those of you who are joining the SCMP Talks for the first time, a very warm welcome to all of you. We welcome you into the conversation and into our community as well. But most importantly, I think the people that I'm most happy to see are the children and students in this room, because I was just expecting to see parents, but I see some children in the crowd, some as young as maybe 6 or 7 I saw, and then some teenagers as well. So a special thank you to the students for coming and taking a stake in your own education. Now, before we get started, I want to take a moment to share a little bit about SCMP Parents Talk. This initiative was launched about 2 years ago and is part of SCMP Learn's mission to help parents like yourselves in your journey of raising curious, confident, and future-ready children. Now, through this series, we aim to create a dedicated space where parents can engage with leading voices in education, gain practical insights, and explore strategies to support their children in reaching their full potential. If you'd like to know more about what SCMP Learn does and how we can support you further, Ms. Ange Jin, Chief Growth Officer at the South China Morning Post, and her team are here today, and they'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have after the talk. I'm just going to have Ange and her team members stand and wave. Okay, so there's Ange, Doris, and some other team members. Make sure you recognize them so that you can talk with them later. Also, we invite you to visit our Young Post Club booth in the entrance hall to learn more about news-powered English learning tools for children 6 to 18. And when you go outside, that is the booth on your right. For those of you who have not had contact with Young Post before, it's a great resource. They have different resources for different age groups, and it's a really great way to use the English medium to help your children learn all kinds of things, and also, of course, to improve their English. I would, of course, like to also take this opportunity to thank our presenting partner, HSBC Premier, for their generous support in bringing this series to life. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you very much, HSBC Premier. Offering more than banking, HSBC Premier connects families with the experts and resources you need to support your children's growth and aspirations. Now, if you'd like to find out more about their services, please don't hesitate to stop by their booth, also outside in the foyer on the left-hand side before you depart today. And last, simply for context, I want to disclose and tell everybody that I have 2 children of my own, one who's almost 6 and one who's almost 4. They're currently enrolled in the local school system, but my wife and I have constant conversations about if and when we're going to transition to the international system. So I hope today, in addition to being your host and your moderator, I want to let you know that I am also a fellow parent and also your voice for asking the questions that are burning in your minds for our principals. Okay? So with that, let's get going with today's conversation. The theme is Principals Vision and Action Series. We'll be bridging the gap between high-level education philosophy and practical real-world application. To guide us through this topic, we're of course very delighted to have 2 leaders in the educational space here in Hong Kong. First, we have Mr. Ken Stevenson, who will be taking up the post of acting principal of the English International Stream at German Swiss International School this August. Ken joins us with more than 25 years of education leadership experience across the UK, Southeast Asia, and Hong Kong. We're delighted to welcome Mr. Stevenson in one of his first public appearances since the announcement of his appointment. We're also delighted to have with us Mr. Mark Poulsum, principal of ESF King George V School, known to most of us in this room as KG5. With over 15 years of leadership experience at the English Schools Foundation, we'll refer to this as ESF, Mr. Poulsum possesses an unparalleled understanding of the local education landscape as well as the ESF community. With that, could I ask you to give a very warm welcome as our two principals come up on stage. Welcome, gentlemen. Now, as they make their way to the stage, a quick reminder that we welcome you to ask any questions. So scan the QR code on the front of your guest badge on the right-hand side to submit them, and we'll be trying to get through as many of those questions as possible at the end of the session. And once again, the QR code on the left-hand side is for simultaneous interpretation. So if you require Mandarin or Cantonese translation, please scan the code on the left. Welcome, gentlemen. Please have a seat. Okay, Ken and Mark, welcome. I want to start, of course, with we were calling the series the Principal's Vision, so it makes a lot of sense for us to start with the principals. At any organization, whether it's corporate or in education, leaders really set the tone. Everything kind of gravitates down. So I want to ask about how your personal journey has shaped the values and beliefs that guide you as an education leader today. Mark, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Desmond. And good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see everyone here. And when I saw our parents here, it's great. And hearing the students as well, I think makes me a bit nervous, the students in the audience, but we'll see how we go. But my personal journey, I just want to highlight probably one thing that's always stuck in my mind. And coming back to my formation of my career when I was in the UK last century, just at the end of last century, I had this amazing head of department called Graham Dufford. And I was a nervous new teacher. I was coming into the classroom. And the first thing that he said to me is, whatever you do, show interest in the children. And by interest, he meant know them as people and know them as learners. And that is something that stuck with me throughout my career. And that's my aspiration that I would have. From my time in Hong Kong, when I joined ESF in 2008, all the way through currently, is can we get an educational experience where every single teacher in every single lesson shows their interest in young people, both as learners and as human beings. And if we get that, then we have really great outcomes.
Okay, great. Ken?
Thank you. Nice to see you all here, and thank you for coming. My journey also began in the UK at a very small village on a semi-rural area of the UK. They didn't have many ballrooms or facilities like this in Eglwys Newydd. And I was fortunate enough to go to a very good school and be taught by some inspirational teachers, and that's really what's framed my journey. Education is a gift; it's a privilege, and when it's opened many doors for me, whether it was in the UK originally, in Australia, in Southeast Asia, Brunei, Malaysia, and also here in Hong Kong. But more than opening doors and providing opportunities for travel, employment, and for meeting new people, education is a gift that it opens your mind for different ways to see the world, different ways of thinking about things, and different ways of problem solving. And when we deal with young people, it's very important to consider them as individuals, as people, as Mark said, and also as learners, but also as individuals. And the value of a community, which is something that has resonated with me throughout my life, is very much at the heart of what I believe our school to be and what we aspire to be.
Okay, thank you. Since we have you guys here, I think that the hardest thing for parents sometimes is really to have an opportunity to dive deep into a school. Because I found when my kids were going, let's say, from nursery to kindergarten, and then from kinder to primary, and I'm sure in the future, when they go to secondary, you can ask lots of people questions, but a lot of that is hearsay. Some people say school X is so-and-so, and someone else will say the complete opposite of the same school. And the only people who can really talk about it are people whose kids have gone to those schools, right? So both GSIS and KG5 are deeply established institutions here in Hong Kong. What do you think is the biggest misconception parents have about the daily reality inside your walls? Who would like to start? Okay, Ken?
Yes, as you referred to, we are a well-established school here in Hong Kong. We've been going since 1969 in various forms. The biggest misconception we have is based on really our success and our reputation for being an academically successful school that gains outstanding results and so on and so forth. But it is not, and never has been, an environment that is solely focused on tests and exams and these kind of things. If you were to come to our school, you would see a dynamic, often noisy, but vibrant and creative environment where children are in the corridors, having fun, collaborating, enjoying their school experience. We are, of course, very proud of what happens at the very end of it, but the journey is what's important there, and it's not just all about exams.
So I have to follow up with a follow-up question on that. What's the secret sauce then? I mean, how do you guys achieve the academics but still have that creative environment and not be kind of like very harsh or rote learning to get those academic results?
The idea of rote learning is actually counterproductive to achieving those results. We're teaching students not just what to learn, but how to learn, to think creatively, to think critically, to engage in debate, questioning, and to always try to understand the roots of things, not just the facts and the recall of those. We want students, and I believe we're fairly successful at that, who enjoy their school, who come to school with a smile on their face, wanting to see their friends, wanting to see their teachers, wanting to dive into all the opportunities, activities, and just the casual interactions that an international school offers. And if we achieve that and they're enjoying their schooling, the results will take care of themselves.
Good. Mark, biggest misconceptions about KG5?
Thank you. Absolutely. And I would echo everything Ken's been saying. I'm not sure what you've left me to say, but on that, but amazing, absolutely. And it's hard for parents as well because your experiences of education would have come from a few years ago, a few decades ago, and maybe in different school systems. So trying to visualize what your children might experience, it's not easy. So I would suggest that we characterize success in education both within and beyond the classroom. So what is happening in the classroom to ensure that your children, our young people, are those flourishing, skillful learners who are being successful across a whole range of academic domains in a way that sets them up for the future. And that's not only in the future next year or next 2 or 3 years, but as they get into university. I'd also highlight and reflect the importance of how are they successful human beings. And it's that kindness, it's that compassion, and it's how they belong to a community and how they enjoy each other's success, how they support each other, and also how they give to others. Because I know across each of our schools, things like service learning will always be really important. So academic success, success beyond the classroom, and success in being good human beings, that is something that we always want to make sure that the parent community and the parents across Hong Kong would have confidence in our schools and what we deliver.
Okay. Next, I'd like to ask a question about language. Both of your institutions, language plays a big role in the daily life of the school. From the immersive German and English streams at GSIS to KG5 requirement that students learn both Mandarin and a European language. How does this focus on multilingualism influence the day-to-day student experience?
In terms of day-to-day experience, I think a core idea is identity. I think lots of our identities and cultures are linked into the languages that we learn. And we know that not only as an academic discipline, the ability to be able to converse bilingually in languages that are foreign to you and your home language, whether that is Mandarin, Cantonese, English, whatever it might be, that is a strong part of your identity and a strong part of your heritage. And that is so important on that day-to-day basis, because if students have a strong sense of self, and that can be expressed through the languages that they learn and the language that they use, that it's really powerful, and it has a big impact on the community and that sense of togetherness.
Okay. And I'm sure a lot of students will want to know this. How does the actual language work in the school? Do they learn certain subjects in certain languages? Are there certain classes that are taught in both languages at the same time? Could you address that, Mark?
So we would have the majority of the lessons would be, pretty much all the lessons would be taught and learnt in English. Then they would have, for our younger years in the MYP, the middle years program, they'd be able to access both Mandarin and also a European language, whether that's French, German, or Spanish. But that'd be language acquisition for European languages. For Mandarin, that'd be anything from the students having a very, very first lesson in Mandarin all the way through to fluent home language learners in Mandarin, so the whole range of offerings that we have. As they progress through the school, they can then specialize. So maybe when they get into GCSE years or year 10, they can choose to continue with the Chinese route, or they can go European language. Equally, when they get into year 12, they can pick up a new language, an ab initio language, if they wish. We also recognize that there might be some other languages that we could characterize as more minority languages that we still want to cater for. So whether that's Japanese or Korean and a whole range of home languages, can we give those children that opportunity to continue to develop that language proficiency? And we do that in a small group scale as well. Majority of lessons will be in English, but then translanguaging, that a bit of educational jargon that might come through there, is an important thing, because sometimes we find students, adults, switch between languages as they express themselves. So it might be that I can express myself really fluently in English at this point, but I need to switch a little bit into my home language to really get that idea across, and that's okay. And we want to hear that, and that's part of their educational experience in the classroom, and we certainly want to hear it in the social spaces across the school as well. So that diversity of language that we should be hearing in international schools is something we foster through the curriculum, but also through that community.
Absolutely. There's a joke that says you're not a real Hong Konger unless you speak Chinglish, right? Ken, I want to move on to you. Please talk about the role that language plays at GSIS, and also how it actually works from a functional standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo what Mark said about the importance of language and communication for everyone. We are slightly different. We're a dual stream school. We have an English international school, English international stream that I head up, and a counterpart who heads up the German international stream. In our stream, the lessons are taught in English, but German is a mandatory part of our curriculum in terms of language acquisition, and we also offer opportunities from a very young age to learn Mandarin, and slightly later on to learn other European languages, primarily French, as that's part of our Swiss heritage as well as our German heritage. In the German international stream, the students are taught primarily through the medium of German. They also learn English and have the opportunity to learn Mandarin or another European language, often that's French or sometimes Latin. So we have, in fact, two parallel streams that are following two different educational systems, but collaboration and intercultural learning is very much at the core of what we do. And it happens organically. Students in extracurriculars, on trips, on activities, are routinely interacting with those in the other streams. So they're switching from German to English and sometimes to Mandarin on a casual and frequent basis. A student may go from learning, for example, a chemistry lesson in English to a lunchtime activity where they're doing Chinese debate, into a football coaching session where the coach is communicating tactics and strategies in German based on their experience with Borussia Dortmund, which is an academy we have a partnership with. So it's not in silos. The language extends far beyond the classroom, and we also have the opportunity for students to go on trips to German-speaking and indeed other countries at various points in their educational experience.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, having both taught in educational systems globally, Mark in the UK and Ken in the UK as well as Southeast Asia, how does the school experience in Hong Kong compare to those regions? And would you recommend Hong Kong as a place for schooling? And what are the main reasons behind your view? Now, I know that question sounds a little bit strange to ask you about would you recommend Hong Kong as a place for schooling, but I would like to tell you guys that there are people in the audience today who have come to Hong Kong especially for this event. There are people who have traveled in from the mainland and other places as well, so they're definitely considering Hong Kong and perhaps other places for their children as a place for education.
Yes, I would unequivocally recommend Hong Kong as a place for education. What we have in Hong Kong is really something quite special. Compared to other systems, other schools around the region or around the world, of course there's a focus on academic excellence and achievement, and that doesn't change. Hong Kong is set up to attain the very highest standards there. But Hong Kong is so much more than that. The deep roots that our schools, our families have within the Hong Kong community, and the opportunities in Hong Kong and now the wider Greater Bay Area are something that cannot be replicated elsewhere in the world. If you want to learn about international finance, well, it's not just in an economics classroom. It is something that's happening outside the doors and permeating through the school. Same could be said for international diplomacy and politics. There is so much that Hong Kong has to offer that gives richness not just to what happens in school, but what the students, the young people experience in their learning journey outside the school, and the value that Hong Kong as a city, as a community can add to education cannot be overstated.
Mark?
Absolutely, and I would add the aspiration. I think if your child came into any school community in Hong Kong, they'd very quickly get that strong sense of aspiration and that drive and that determination to be successful in whatever they're passionate about. And I think that diversity of passions comes through as well, and the breadth of offering and experiences that children and young people get in Hong Kong is incredible, whether you're into the arts, whether you're into sports, whether you want to go to any STEM-related activities, it's there for you. So for me, it's that aspiration, that's that engagement that are so important in the fabric of Hong Kong and its educational community.
Okay, thank you. A major crossroads for many Hong Kong families, including my own, which I mentioned before, is the decision between local school and international school. And of course, that comes with a slew of questions, including if I should do it, when I should do it, why I should do it. As leaders of two long-standing schools within the international school space, what do you think are the advantages that an international education provides?
First of all, I'd say I don't think you can make a bad choice, because whether you went for the local system or international system, there's strong evidence that both systems have really excellent outcomes. So there can't be a bad choice. But in terms of coming into the international community, international education, I think it's the global citizen that would emerge through that process. We have the IB, International Baccalaureate Qualification, that within the ESF would go from all the way from kindergarten all the way through to our graduating students' IB diploma. And that fosters that international mindedness, that idea, that strong sense of self, getting to know others, and being belonging to that international community where if you come into school, at KG5, you'll be around 50 other nationalities, all coming together with a common purpose, with a common idea, a shared goal, a shared outcome, and that genuine international community that for our students who graduate, whether they want to stay in Hong Kong, my son, he goes to HKU now because he loves science and that's where the best place for him to go. Whether it's HKU, whether it's Germany, whether it's UK, US, Australia, other parts of Asia, it's open and it creates an opportunity because that's that breadth and that thinking that comes from being around and being comfortable to be around 50 plus different nationalities.
Ken?
I'd very much echo that. The big advantage, and it's not necessarily the overwhelming thing, but the big advantage is that difference of perspectives that you get with people from many different nationalities, many different cultures, and many different language backgrounds. The opportunities that affords a young person, not just in terms of learning new things, but in terms of broadening the mind and seeing different perspectives and different ways to approach things cannot be overstated. Having said that, as Mark alluded to, there are a great number of strengths within the local school system. The academics, the outcomes are very, very strong there, and it is really about a matter of families and children deciding what's the best fit for them. There is no one-size-fits-all answer, but there is always a preferred pathway based on the family's aspirations, their backgrounds, and what they want to achieve through the educational process. As Mark also mentioned, the style of education might be slightly different. We could talk a little bit about the values of the Enlightenment versus the more Confucian background of the local education system. But that inquiry-based, that questioning, that openness, debate, and to question authority is very much a hallmark of the international school system, and certainly within our school, and I believe KG5 as well.
Right, and I was the one who said rote memorization, so you know what background I come from. So, okay, Your schools offer, and Mark, you mentioned this already, you just mentioned IB, so I think that's the next topic I want to explore. Both of your schools offer very diverse academic tracks. GSIS features the unique German International Abitur alongside the IB, while KG5 provides both the IB diploma and the career-focused, get this, BTEC/IBCP pathways. I swear back when I was going to school, there were not so many acronyms. With so many options available, how should parents choose? What should they be considering? And of course, with the parents with younger children, this stuff doesn't become relevant until a little bit later down the road. So how should they be making their decisions now to suit whatever path that they should be going?
The starting point for that decision, I believe, will be two things. First of all, understanding what your child is passionate about. Secondly, what can they be successful in? And for some children, that more traditional exam route is probably the preferred style of learning. For others, the more practical, applied vocational route might be more suited to them as individuals. So we would have students who would probably get to the age of about 14 or 15 and think, I'm a great artist, and that's what I love. And I can see myself being in the art world when I graduate. So I want to go a vocational route, whether it's the IB careers pathway or a BTEC qualification. I want to specialize, and that's what I want to do. For others, it may be, no, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a doctor. I know that my pathway has particular components of the IB diploma that I need to have to get to that next step, whether it is chemistry, biology, physics, whatever it might be. So I need to do the IB diploma. So that thinking comes very early when they're about 13 or 14, and they start to select some options that guide their pathways. So know your child's passions, know the best way they learn and how they can be successful, and that starts to guide you into different directions. And I know that I'm pretty sure that every parent in here is very future focused. Look beyond schooling as well. And where do you see your child heading? You might not know precisely, but which territory? Are they going to stay in Hong Kong? Is it Europe? Is it North America? Do you see them going into more traditional academic qualifications? Do you see them going into more applied qualifications? And have conversations with higher education counsellors and higher education experts, because if you're thinking 3 or 4 years ahead and you want your child to go to a vocational pathway, well, which universities in which territories are best suited for that, and what qualifications get you there? What we wouldn't want is anyone to get their child to 16 or 17 and then think, I've made a wrong choice here. So these thinking points often start when they are 14, 15 years old, thinking, where's my passions? Where can I be successful? Where's my future territory for university? And what kind of degree might I be heading towards? Because that should inform your choice.
So cannot think too far before 13 or 14?
You could.
You could. There have been parents in this room who've been preparing before birth of their children in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I don't go quite far that back. But if I reflected to my own personal experience, my son, who's now doing a science degree at HKU, when he was in year 9, so they'd been 14, he said, I love physics. But I said, this is lousy. But you're really good at art. Go and do art. You know, that's what you're really good at. Nope. I like astrophysics. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I enjoy. Okay, are you sure about that? But he got his head down. He studied. He worked hard. And he ploughed through it. And it wasn't always easy. But he got his physics qualification. He got his maths qualification. And now he's studying science at HKU. Not physics, environmental science. But he started heading that direction. And he said to me at one point, he said, can you stop telling me about how good I am at art? I know I'm really good at art, but I like doing that outside of school. That's what I'm passionate about outside of school. And so we have similar conversations with each of our students. And some would say, no, art, drama, sports, design, that's my thing. That's what I'm going to do. And that's my future pathways. Others are less certain, they want to keep it broad and open, and others know they want to go down that future academic pathway. And I know that that breadth of provision that we can give for our communities, it keeps it open, and it keeps those options viable, but I'd always recommend do your research, because if you end up going into a territory of university that doesn't accept or recognize certain qualifications, that then becomes a challenge.
Yeah. Ken, academic pathways, please.
Yes, as you alluded to, we have two different academic pathways. One leads ultimately towards the IB diploma, and one to the German International Abitur, or DIA, which is another acronym for you. The main difference between the two, other than a few technicalities, is the language of instruction. They are both broad-based but academically rigorous qualifications. The DIA, or the German Abitur, is obviously deeply rooted within the German educational system and suits a family who want to learn in German, potentially going to a university in a German-speaking country such as Germany itself or Switzerland. Many of those actually are tuition-free or very minimal tuition, which is certainly not the case in the UK or the US, as you may be aware. But both qualifications, the IB diploma, which we teach through the medium of English, and the DIA, which is in German, offer academic rigor in a broad-based program, whether it's trilingual in the DIA or bilingual in the IB diploma. There's the opportunity to specialize in various areas, but maintain the breadth of the education. So the idea is not to close doors, but to open doors to universities and careers, in fact, all over the world. And these qualifications are recognized not just in Germany and Switzerland, but in the UK, other European countries, the US, Canada, Australia, here in Hong Kong, and they have a great deal of currency and respectability in terms of opening those doors. But more than just a pathway to a university of choice is the experience of learning through an inquiry-based and collaborative scheme, which allows students to flourish during their learning journey, not just at the very end with the outcomes.
Great, thank you. When mapping out their schooling options for their children, I think a lot of parents will consider how schools are positioned within Hong Kong. Now, KG5 is of course part of a large established school network, the ESF, while GSIS stands as an independent school with deep European roots. How do you think these different backgrounds shape what the student experience is at your respective schools?
I think one of our conversations before this was we probably got more in common than there is in difference in terms of our values and the approaches and what we're trying to achieve through the education. On behalf of ESF, essentially we have 22 schools, all the way from kindergarten through to secondary schools, and they are deeply rooted in Hong Kong. It's part of the fabric of Hong Kong, part of the education landscape of Hong Kong. ESF's been almost 60 years now. KG5 is 131 years now in Hong Kong. And what we have is the ability for the students not only to be working within their own community, but working across communities. So often, in fact, you would find that the educational experience that we'd have is you'd have students from KG5, from South Island School, West Island School, and so on, joining and working together on different things. And whether this is sustainability organizations, it is a 6-week program for our Year 9 students who go to Australia for a limitless program. It's an outdoor education program. Through to a student council, where representatives from different schools would give feedback and give us a sense of which direction we're heading as a school. So that it's the opportunity by both belonging in Hong Kong and having that deep-rooted approach and knowledge of the landscape of Hong Kong, but the ability to work across the different schools to build wider connections that every student reflects. This gives us good opportunities. And whether that's going to Australia for a few weeks, whether that's going to talk about sustainability or working as part of a student council, is quite powerful.
So you said on these school trips, different students from the ESF schools can come together.
Yes,
That's
so
awesome.
we had this, we've got this emerging program in Year 9, so these are 13, 14-year-old, and 6 weeks in Australia, phones away, no phones, they can't contact home, but it's about 150 students who come together and they learn the resilience which comes from that independent style of outward bounds. They go on a 10-day trek, they do these different activities, and that's part of our curriculum offering. And that's how we'd view part of our curriculum experience. We want an increasing number of students to have. So next year, we're broadening that because we recognize that not every child is the rope climbing, kayaking, individual. So we've got a limitless trip going to Chengdu as well, which is going to be more arts, culture, food-based activities, and the ability to we're hoping about 100 plus kids go to Chengdu, similar numbers going to Australia, and given these different experiences where they get to work and live and join activities with people they're less familiar with. That's in great. A different environment. That's a real good option for them.
Okay. Yeah, as a smaller school, we are a through school from kindergarten right the way through to graduation, whether it's the IB diploma or the DIA. And we are very much a community. We are small, everyone knows each other, and we have the ability and the agility to make decisions that are on an individual or a small group level. So we can tailor our approach to a degree to match the needs of the individual students. Although we are an independent school, we have links with the other German schools in the region, and one of the ways that manifests itself is the Ostasian Spiele, or the East Asian Games, where students from German schools all over the region get together to compete in sporting contests. We also have links with educational institutes in Germany and Switzerland. So, for example, we've sent students over for research projects at the Max Planck Institute in Heidelberg and at CERN in Geneva, which is an amazing opportunity for students to work with professors on genuine research at these very top-level, world-renowned institutions. But as a school which is a community which is deep-rooted, having, well, nearly 60 years of experience in Hong Kong, we do value the individual. We get to know each other, we work together, and we support each other in almost a village-like environment. And I think that's one of the strengths of our school, that we care deeply about each other and learn from each other at every stage.
Well, the godfather of my daughter, both his boys currently attend GSIS, and he was telling me, both him and his wife always tell me, the close-knit community and the fact that everybody knows each other is definitely the thing that they absolutely love about the school. Yeah. A lot of parents in this room, I think, when they're thinking about having their children go to highly sought-after institutions like yours, their focus is on academic perfection, especially if you're currently in the local system. You know, to kind of make it to the next step, it's all about academics. Please tell us, apart from academic perfection, what are you guys looking for in the interview process to determine good fit?
I think that's the key word, it's fit. We do have a selection process, of course, many schools do, but it is not about perfection. It's not about getting the best scores and knowing everything already. It's about approaching things with an open mind, a willingness to be involved in our school, not any school, but our school. And it's about character and resilience and adaptability. And that's the kind of thing that we try to assess, as well as having the base level academics. And it is base level academics to access and not only access, but thrive in a fast-paced, dynamic learning environment. We want people who want to be part of our community, who want to contribute to that community, who want to live the values and learn the values of the school, whether that be the German language or values such as resilience, leadership, and integrity, that are very much cornerstones of what we do as a school. So the misconception there, I guess, if to use that word again, is that we only select from the very, very top. We don't. We select people who we believe will be a good fit for our school, who will enjoy the experience at our school, and who will contribute to the learning of those around them. And I include the teachers and the administrators in that. We learn a lot from our students. And I'd go a little bit further and say, once a student is part of our school, we commit to them. We don't say, well, you haven't quite made the grade there, so you're not going to the next level. You're with us, and we're very proud of everything you achieve, whether it's success in sporting field, music, arts, or getting the very highest grades in the IB diploma or any other system.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Mark.
Thank you. And across CSF, we have a vision of be the best you can be. And that's essentially what it means. We want every child to be an individual. And the key question for us during that admissions process is, can you benefit from an English medium education? So it's an inclusive approach. It's not selective, but we're looking for any child who has a level of English, can engage in our community, can engage in our curriculum, and learn well. That's the basic premise of our admissions process. So I recognise that often when I see parents come for admissions processes, there's a bit of nervousness, and it feels like you need to be able to prove how dedicated your child is or how high achieving your child is. But it's not about that. It's about you come in, you have a look at the school, similar to what Ken was saying about, is it the right values for you? Mm-hmm. Does it align with what you think is right for your child? And can your child benefit from an English medium education? And it's not always clear-cut. And there are times when you're thinking, well, my child is formative in their English language, it's developing, it's growing, but they're not quite there yet. And then we have a look and see where we can work with those students to be able to access our classes. And that's fine. So my key bit of advice would be enable your child just to be themselves. Bring their genuine, authentic self to any conversation through admissions process. And then for you as parents, because it's a rich and deep and diverse international field in Hong Kong, you find a school that's right for you, that aligns with your aspirations for your child, that aligns with the values that you think are important, and gives the experiences within and beyond the curriculum that you feel are important for your child. And if you have that in your mind, it's not a test, it's a process, and we would always want to be able to uphold that vision or to be the best you can be. And KG5 has its own spin on that, where we want every child to be their own remarkable, and we want to find the best for your child. And so very similar to what Ken was saying earlier, the alignment of values, the individual, can you benefit from an English medium education? That's the key things.
Okay, thank you. We're doing pretty good on time. We just have under 5 minutes. I have 2 more questions. I think we can get through them. Real quick, before I ask the last 2 questions, a reminder to all of you, we would love to have your questions. Scan that QR code on the right side of your badge if you want to get questions up here via Slido. Okay, my second last question. I heard you guys talk about this before, and it's something that everybody in this room wants to know. How do you see the future of education evolving in the next 10 to 15 years? Ken, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, the pace of change will increase. That's the key thing. Things will change quickly, and they'll change in sometimes unpredictable ways. When we look at things like technology, the last, 20 years have been about embedding technology in the classroom. Now they're about using technology as a tool to augment the learning experience. And things such as critical thinking, such as questioning, such as understanding the authenticity of the source, the value of what it's telling you, become critical to success in the modern environment. Things will change quickly, and adaptability, resilience, and critical thinking are very much the skills that we want to see our students develop in order to adapt to that rapidly changing world. And as educators, even somewhat senior ones, we need to learn, unlearn, relearn, unlearn again, relearn again, how to best serve the needs of our learners. We need to be agile, we need to be lifelong learners, and we need to adapt very quickly in the right way in order to give our students the very best experience.
Mark?
Absolutely, and I think all those human attributes are so important, because one of the challenges where we are essentially in the midst of a technological revolution, what's happening at the moment, is that people try to predict the future and then say, this is really unpredictable, so here's the skills that you need to learn for that unpredictable future. And that becomes quite hard and it's quite challenging. And so I'd always encourage educators and parents and children to think, well, what's not going to change? What will be the standard and the test of time in 10, 20, 30 years' time? And that is being good human beings. I think a key part of education now is not only the academic success, but how are good human beings emerging through the educational system so they can be successful in the future. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had a few years ago when they said, I want someone who I'd want to sit next to a train on a train journey and have a conversation with. And can they hold that conversation? And do I get a strong sense that person has kindness, has compassion, and has all those positive human traits alongside the resilience and the agility that needs to come into the future? That's where a key part of education will be into the future. And they're starting to be written through the IB programs as well, in their thinking and their philosophy. How do we generate and develop, through education, kind, compassionate human beings who do well with others, work well with technology, have that resilience, can be well, and be successful into the future? And that's the challenge, and that's a global challenge.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a minute left, and I think instead of trying to cram in another question, let's start the Q&A a little bit earlier, because I'm sure the audience has lots of questions that they want to ask, and I'd rather spend time on that. So give me a second. I'm just going to switch my iPad here over to the other interface to bring up my Slido. Let me refresh here. Okay, it's making me log in again. Give me a second. Good. Lots of questions. This one caught my eye. I have to ask this one first. To be the helicopter or tiger parent or not to be, what is your view on parents' engagement in terms of their children's academic success and interests development?
Do not be a helicopter parent. Do not be a lawnmower parent who sweeps all before you and cuts all the obstacles out the way. Children learn best when they're allowed to fail and fail well. When they're allowed to make mistakes, when they're encouraged to take the risks that underlie that mistake-making process and then learn from that afterwards. That's what builds the character alongside the knowledge, skills, and understanding. And that's increasingly, as Mark referred to, what we need in this ever-changing world. Be involved, certainly. Support. Trust your children that they will develop in the way that benefits them. Trust the school and trust the process. Ask questions, but don't make demands.
I like that phrase. I'm going to use that. Ask questions, don't make demands. Parenting is really hard. I want to acknowledge that. And every single parent wants the best for their child. And particularly if it's your eldest child, knowing what that best is can be difficult. And then you think, I want to give more. And if I give more, that's better. And if I give more, that's better again. But sometimes it is that sitting back, checking in with your child. And if your child comes home and they're smiling and they're happy, that's probably one indicator of success. And often these conversations happen best in informal moments, over dinner table, when you're going for a walk, just checking in with your children. Okay, what are you working on? What are you doing well in? Where's your challenges? Those sorts of sense-checking questions give you real strong insight in terms of how your child is doing. And 9 times out of 10, they will be fine. They'll be going well. Sometimes, when they're not, like Ken said, come and talk to the school. And often I get parents saying, I don't want to go to talk to the school. I might get into trouble, which is kind of sometimes that happens in terms of people's thinking, but we're very open people, we're very open schools, and we want to encourage parents to come in and talk to us, whatever's on their mind about any challenges, because there'd always be uncertainty, particularly as your children get older. And if there's anything like my children, they won't talk as much to you as they get a bit older, and trying to draw out what their experiences are becomes a bit more challenging. So spending time, picking up those cues, seeing how they are, checking on their strengths, seeing where their challenges are, having those open conversations with the school, that's the best way that you can support your child.
Okay, thank you. You guys obviously are much closer to the in and outs of the education system than 99% of the people in this room. So the question here is, do you feel that the children who were in their formative early secondary years have overcome learning challenges from COVID? What have you guys seen?
I think largely yes. I mean, maybe if we asked that question a couple of years ago, the answer would be a bit more nuanced. But I think the children in the lower secondary, yes, they've been through COVID, but we just had our end of primary years celebration last week, where our children who are finishing year 6, the primary school, and getting ready to come to the secondary school, some of them referred to COVID and half of them couldn't remember it. And the one thing it's taught us is that learning is very much a social enterprise, and having children, young people in the classroom, around the corridors, around the school campus is in many ways as valuable as what goes on in the classroom itself, perhaps even more valuable in certain instances. And I do think that as educators, we learned a lot through the experience of COVID and online learning and the disruption inherent within that. We became very good at content delivery, not that we weren't anyway, but content delivery through different methodologies online, et cetera, and it's really focused us, and I think I speak for not just our school, but the profession, on the value of social interaction, character, and interpersonal skills. And I think when we look at our younger secondary learners, which was the question, I think they have overcome it. It's taken a while, but I think they are in a position where they can really put that behind them and go and launch the next stage of their educational career with confidence.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think there's many reasons for them overcoming it. I would also suggest one reason is that intentional design that happens in the classroom, because I think as schools came back from COVID, we recognised that social element had been missing for a period of time and paid particular attention within the delivery of the curriculum and the experiences we create for children to ensure that social element was occurring and to enable children to reflect on it. And I think some of the anxiety and tension and difficulty of resuming schooling after COVID, yeah, I would agree, that's fading away now. And we continue to have that real focus and that real design on how do we ensure that students communicate well, are good people to be around, support each other, and are part of a community, and create the opportunities and experiences that build that community element after COVID, which was essentially a period of largely isolation for a lot of children.
Sure.
So I think that's been a big piece of work that's happening in schools, and we're seeing the positive outcomes from that.
Also related to you guys having a pulse on the systems, what trends or changes in education are most important for parents to understand? Trends or changes in education?
I think, as we alluded to, one of the big changes in education is how children learn and what tools they have to learn. And then how do we know that it is their work? Which I think is one of the challenges of AI, with that rapid change in landscape that we have of AI. So I would anticipate moving forwards, there may be some questions around how we assess. How do we assess with integrity? How do we assess in ways that we know it's a student's work? So that technological change that is happening, students will embrace and use those technologies, but how do we use it safely? How do we use it with integrity? And that will be part of our future landscape and the changing trends of education.
Yeah, I'd very much agree with that, particularly around the idea of authenticity of assessment and authenticity of content. I think one of the major ways things are changing is the accessibility of information. Back when I was young, if I wanted to know the answer to a question, I might ask someone, but I might not be able to find the right person. I might go to the library and I might spend several hours looking for the correct book to tell me the answer. Now the answers are all there. They're seconds away. But it's the question that becomes important. How do you formulate the question to get the answer that you need? Or more important, the answer that tells you the next question. And that inquiry-based approach very much is something that is becoming more and more important, not just in terms of the acquisition of knowledge, but the curation and application of knowledge. And for someone who is quite traditional, I guess, in many ways in my approach, the value of interdisciplinary thinking, going beyond what happens in one particular compartment, in one particular classroom, and be able to apply that in different areas, not just in school, but outside of school, and the transferability of skills. We mentioned languages a lot earlier, that's one of them, but also analytical thinking, data analysis, critical thinking, and empathy. These are all things that need to be developed, they need to be nurtured, they don't happen by accident, and they become increasingly the focus as opposed to simply knowing a large array of facts.
And as you were speaking there, absolutely that interdisciplinary approach where the connections between and the synthesis of ideas, it reminded me of, there seems to be an increasing range of academic disciplines that promote systems thinking. The links between different areas of knowledge, the links between different ideas. I know within the IB framework, environmental systems and societies is a real growth area. They're likely, I think it's been trialled in Singapore at the moment. They've got some new courses coming through that are probably going to be live in either 2028 or 2030, but again promote systems thinking and all those interconnections coming through. So that, yeah, absolutely.
Now, I said at the earlier part of the day that my role, one of my roles today is to be the mouthpiece of the parents, and so I have to ask some tough questions. I noticed both principals mentioned the words technology, advanced technology, but not the word AI. And I think I would be remiss, because I'm seeing a lot of questions about AI. I'm not going to read all the questions, but I'll just sum it up from the questions I've asked. What are your views on AI in terms of how it should be employed or deployed in the classroom? Because like both of you have alluded to, you can get your work done just by asking AI. So then there's one side of doing the more critical analysis, but then should we ban it altogether? What are your views on that?
I think we'd have to be very cautious about banning it altogether, although there is obviously a need for a considered and cautious approach to the deployment of AI within the classroom. It's a tremendous resource. We all know that. We all know the power of this tool, but it is a tool. And we want children, we want learners to be able to use that tool productively, authentically, and ethically, but not be controlled by the tool. And the skills of, for example, I keep saying the same thing, critical thinking, analysis, questioning, that allows someone to not only use AI productively, but to interpret the output of a large language model in terms of what it's telling you, where it's getting its information from. They're very good at telling you their sources if you know where to look. Mm-hmm. And if you get something from Reddit, perhaps, or
Instagram,
maybe it's not the most reliable source to base your paper on. Right. It does bring challenges. It does bring challenges in terms of authenticity of work, and it does bring opportunities in terms of removing some of the, shall we say, mundane process-based things and allowing students and teachers to focus on creativity and problem solving. But it does need to be taught, and it does need to be taught with caution, and it needs to be introduced in the right way, at an age-appropriate way, and with ethics and integrity very much at the forefront of every use of this tool.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's I think a phrase I used earlier, that it's exciting but scary, and I think that's where it is with AI, because it is here, it is going to be used, and sometimes it takes you by surprise. I was on my Google domains last week, and all of a sudden, when I was producing a document, unprompted, it just gave me a summary of that document. I didn't ask it to, it just did. So I was using AI, but then I read through the summary, cross-referred, did that pick out the key points? Is that my authentic voice coming through? Then I could think, oh, okay, that's reasonable, a few tweaks here and there, and that's okay. So your children will be using it. As adults, we are using it. So I think part of our responsibility is to educate around it. And picking up those points around integrity. I think increasingly I'm finding teachers at school having viva voce style interviews with students just to check understanding of what they produced. And I think that's one way that we can see whether AI has been used for integrity. And probably at the forefront of all of our minds is safety. So that any AI tool we use, it needs to be from a reputable source. It's not taking things out from unhealthy areas. And it has data privacy written into it. And that's one of the challenges when all these different tools keep popping up everywhere. How can we guarantee that that has the right safeguards? How can we guarantee that that has the right data privacy written into it so that you don't expose yourself to unwanted marketing or anything else that might come through those platforms? So we always have to approach it. We educate, to know about AI, know how to use it, integrity, but also how do we use it safely, and how do we use it to support learning rather than being driven by it? And I think that has to be the work that we do.
Okay. I have enough time for one more question. And as the moderator, I'm going to pick it only because this question was already in my mind that I thought the crowd would ask. And sure enough, it's come up, so I'm going to ask it. What are the main pros, cons, and transitional challenges for local students entering your schools? And what is the optimal grade to make that switch?
That's a very hard question to answer. Certainly the second part. I don't think there are many pitfalls that need overly concern people. There is a degree of cultural change if you're coming from let's call it a local school environment into an international school environment. But if that is a change you want to make, you will have already thought through the features that are attracting you, that are pulling you into the international school environment, the multiculturalism, the languages, the different perspectives, and so on and so forth that we covered earlier. In terms of the optimum time, well, there's two real arguments, isn't there? The earlier the better, okay, to become fully embedded within the school culture and the pathway, or leave it a little bit later and get the benefits of a local school and the language immersion in Hong Kong, the community reach in Hong Kong before transitioning to a more global perspective in an international school. Sorry, I've not answered your question because it is very much individual to the family. We have three, I would call it main points of entry, I guess you could say, which would be kindergarten, when you're not going to be transferring from a local school because it's the start of your education. At the beginning of a primary school, which is sort of 5 years old kind of time, and again at the start of secondary school, which is kind of 11 years old then. Okay. But it doesn't mean you can't join at any other time. It's when it's right for you, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'll know your child best in terms of when they're ready or want to be able to transfer into the international system. If we was going to look back on data, we probably have key points where we get more frequent number of admissions from non-international sectors, and that's probably going to be at the start of primary. It might be after maybe from year 3 into year 4, halfway through primary, certainly into year 7 at the start of secondary, and then maybe into year 10 as they just get ready for GCSEs, KG5. So we'd have areas that are usually ring-fenced and signposted as key points and key transitions and stages of learning, and then they can be part of that community for the next phase of learning, whether it's middle years program or IGCSE, and then complete that. And once they're in the school, being part of that community, it's often a piece of anxiety that, okay, I think they've got the curriculum and the academics sorted, that's okay, but I'm worried about them making friends. So my advice would be every international school is well set up to create buddies, to be able to immerse your child into that sector, but then encourage them to do different things, encourage them to try new activities. If they haven't done a sport, give it a go. And I think often the strongest friendship groups come through these different activities that occur beyond the curriculum as well.
Okay, that's great to know. So to sum up the two principles, final answers, don't let me put words in your mouth, but there is no right time to do it. It's really about the fit for your family, and also don't be afraid to make the switch because there will be a support network to help your kids when they do make that switch. Fair enough? Thank you very much, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for all of your questions. I wish we could get to all of them, but unfortunately, time didn't allow for us to do that, but I hope from the Q&A that we were able to do on stage, you got a sense of the values and vision of two of the most esteemed international schools here in Hong Kong. Would you mind joining me in giving a heartfelt appreciation to Mr. Stevenson and Mr. Poulsum for taking the time to speak with us today? Your expertise and thoughtful reflections on education and leadership have given us a lot of perspective and aided our children a lot. Thank you very much, gentlemen. If I could ask you to stand and stay for a photo, please. At this time, I would also like to invite Ms. Ange Jin, Chief Growth Officer, SCMP, and Mr. Jackie Chan, HSBC Premier Health and Education Propositions Lead, to come up on stage for a photo. Welcome, Ange and Jackie. Okay, we're gonna do two photos. First, just one with our two principals, and Ange and Jackie. Okay, looking to the center at our official photographer, please. Okay, good. A few more. One more from the cell phone. Okay, and I understand we have some props as well. Let's get those props up as well for a second photo. So it's the respective school logos. We have our presenter as well as SCMP Learn. Okay, once again, looking to our center photographer first. Okay, and then the two smartphones. Okay, great. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Let's give another round of applause to Mark and Ken. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Thank you. And please take your time. All right, as we come to the end of this afternoon's event, I'd like to sincerely thank all of you for your curiosity and engagement. Your questions, reflections, and participation, of course, is what make events like this great and meaningful. Before you head off, could I invite you to take a quick survey? On the back of your name tag, you'll see a third QR code. Please scan that QR code and give us some feedback, because your feedback helps us put these events together, and your feedback is invaluable. And for taking the time to do this, we have a small gift for you for taking the survey. Simply go to the booth outside, to the Young Post Club gift booth, and show your completed survey QR code, and they will give you a small gift. With that, thank you for being a wonderful audience and for spending your afternoon, your Saturday afternoon with us. We hope you got a lot out of this session, and we'll see you again at our next event. Thank you very much.